Let's talk now with the lawmaker who voted in favor of this bill, Republican Congressman Rich McCormick of Georgia. Congressman, thank you so much for taking time out to talk with us about this. You are someone who has long had concerns, like so many lawmakers, about TikTok being owned by a Chinese company, also about its influence on children. I know that's something that you've mentioned in the past. Last year, you had said that you were not big on a TikTok ban. You did vote yes today. What changed your mind?
Well, first of all, it's not a TikTok ban, as was previously mentioned. It merely denies access for new users. It's a way to, and one of the things that changed my mind, of course, was actually yesterday when I had a bunch of 12 and 13-year-olds calling my office because TikTok directed them that way, and they were irate. Some of them were suicidal, some of them were threatening. This is a huge lever to affect elections, to carry out a communist government's nefarious plans to basically change our youth in the way they think. This is manipulative. It's controlled by somebody who's not concerned at all in our First Amendment, somebody who can basically galvanize and motivate anywhere from 130 to 170 million people. We recently passed legislation that didn't allow them to own land in certain areas of the United States. Why wouldn't we protect our citizens as well from somebody who has nefarious plans to affect our children and even adults going forward?
Do you have any indication that ByteDance would sell TikTok?
Well, you mentioned in the previous segment that you were worried about different companies that were hesitant to buy because of the legal ramifications of it becoming too large. But quite frankly, I know there's several companies that would be more than willing to buy this. This is a lucrative business. They can make sure that it's not affected by a Chinese government. They can make sure that it's fair-handed and that it's not used in ways to affect us. And as a matter of fact, if you look at how TikTok is used in China, it's not the same as the way it's applied in the United States. They have time limits on it. It's considered more educational. The content is different. They understand the addictive properties of this and how it can be used against children, and they make sure that it's done right in China and absolutely in the wrong way in the United States.
Yeah, there is certainly a difference. That's been reported on. I think it's a very interesting note for people to take as they look at it. You talked about a ban on purchasing of land. TikTok is an app, yes, but it's also, of course, a place where people express themselves. They're exercising their First Amendment rights. Do you worry about concerns that raises? Obviously, there was a Montana ban that was blocked by the courts, for instance, in part because of First Amendment concerns.
Yeah, that's why some people objected. I think you had 50 Democrats and 15 Republicans vote against this, most of it on the First Amendment rights issue. But quite frankly, there's nobody who's more against the First Amendment than the Chinese government, and they do control things. If you wanted something that was going to be against the Chinese, I'm sure TikTok would not support that. If you wanted something that was going to be maybe affecting our elections, they could use that to influence Americans. It's not First Amendment. When somebody controls it overseas that has their best interests over our best interests. When you talk about First Amendment, you do want the First Amendment, but I don't think that's what they're interested in at all.
And what is the proof that you have of something like that happening? And I've heard, obviously, the descriptions of how this could work. And I think clearly a lot of people look at that, they think it's very plausible. But in terms of the proof that it's happening, you have ByteDance and TikTok saying there is no proof this is happening, it's not happening. I mean, what do you say to that, and how that might be important if there were to be a court challenge?
Well, I think the classified brief we had recently convinced a lot of people, and without disclosing anything that's classified, what we do know is this: they've been gathering information on us, but all applications do that. But do you want to go into a nefarious actor? More important than that, because I know we get information from all sorts of applications, probably over 20 applications on your phone, my phone, that gather data on us all the time. But it's influence, specifically directed by a Communist Party platform on elections, on our children. The fact that they could literally use it, and this is what convinced me, and this is what put me over the board, is yesterday when they literally used it, you had to put in the zip code, and then put in a congressman's office to dial, which they did in order to get access to this application, and then they scream at me about how horrible as this bill is. That's an influence. And if they do that with our elections, if they do it the way our children think, knowing that it's addictive, knowing they can use it in nefarious ways, why wouldn't we want to put it in the hands of somebody who actually has intent to benefit our children rather than somebody who actually has no interest other than profit and propaganda?
Well, let me ask you, because there was that classified brief yesterday that lawmakers were able to have, DNI, FBI, DOJ briefing lawmakers, and obviously you can't disclose what was in it, but did you have reason to believe, from what you heard, that the denials we're hearing from ByteDance about what is happening, that those are lies?
Well, here's the non-classified brief. We already knew. We already knew that China uses it in China, much different than you use it here, because they know it's addictive. They know it can be used for good or for bad. What they have chosen to do is use it for good in China and bad for the United States. That should tell you everything you need to know right there.
Congressman McCormick, we appreciate your time. Thank you for being with us.
My pleasure.